Hey there, Earth Station One folks. Welcome to another episode. That's right, folks. We are back and we are going to be talking about the 80th anniversary of Casablanca. That's right, one of the most classic, iconic films, dare say it, in history. And can't believe we've never talked about this one on the podcast before. It's just amazing to think about, and it's so just amazing to think about Humphrey Bogart, and it's just everyone in this film is just so amazing, and Ingrid Bergman just glows throughout this whole movie. It's like she's a shining star through this film, and I am dying to talk about it. And we got a great bunch of folks here to talk about it. Of course, Mr. Fez himself, Mike Gordon, is here.
Howdy.
How's things over at the Blue Parrot, sir?
Well, out of all the podcasts on all the networks, I am very, very glad to be appearing on this one.
Here's looking at you, kid. So.
Yeah, be prepared for a lot of this, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
going to get a lot of this one.
Oh, yeah.
Every other line in this movie is classic and memorable. So we'll see if we can fit them all in.
Oh, we had a sing along, a kiss is just a kiss. It's just like, there's just so much great stuff in this movie, and it's going to be a blast to talk about it. Let's of course welcome Dave Chapman is here.
Hey. Good to be here.
It is awesome for you to be here, and thank you for behind the scenes. Dave filled in at last minute. He asked, a couple days ago, it's like, when are you guys going to be talking about it? Are you going to be doing it for the podcast? And we had actually had somebody who couldn't make it tonight. And so I said, Dave, still want to talk about it? With 5 minutes to go before we started recording. 2 minutes. All right. 2 minutes.
I said, give me 5, but you said it was in 2.
I know.
It's okay. I'm here. It's great. I'm thrilled.
It's going to be a blast. And of course, the award-winning author himself, Mr. Bobby Nash, is here.
I am shocked to find that podcasting is going on here.
Sir, here's your microphone.
Oh, thank you very much. So good. Yeah, like Michael said, there's going to be a lot of this tonight.
Yes.
So, yes. So glad to be here. I love this movie.
Bobby Nash coming to us in living Technicolor.
Yes, I have a little technical difficulty. I can't make mine black and white. So
I know. So you get to see, folks at home get to see Bobby in color.
I am the time traveler in the sci-fi version of Casablanca.
Oh, yes. Well, Rick was involved with all these different, battles and stuff over the, years. He might be a time traveler, knowing exactly when to be. And he doesn't look like he aged a minute in any of those flashbacks. Oh,
and he was a snappy dresser, so
Exactly. Just don't play that song for him. That's whatever you do, don't play that song. So we definitely would love to hear from you guys at home. Please, feedback at earthstation1.com. And if we definitely would love to hear from you guys, and if you want to, as we always like to say, leave feedback. We would love to hear from you guys. Or if you want, like and subscribe. That's the best way people get to know more about us. Our numbers are growing. We've gotten some new subscribers up on YouTube. We are getting more and more downloads of the audio version of the podcast. So it's pretty darn awesome when people are paying attention to us. And, as we always like to say, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And another way we want to say thank you is to our friends over at Tifosi Optical. Tifosi is the best place to get a pair of sunglasses. They're located, here in Georgia, but, they ship to the world, and they've got some great glasses. They just don't have sunglasses. They have gamer glasses. They got blue light blocking glasses. They also, of course, have safety goggles. They got face shields, and each one could be custom made. If you have a prescription like I do, these are newer glasses for me. And you know what? Without them, we can't see jack. So it really sucks. But you know what? Sometimes I'd like a good pair of sunglasses, and Tifosi Optical will actually take your prescription and put it into your sunglasses for you, which is pretty darn awesome. And a lot of times it's a lot cheaper than going through some of these like eyeglass places or such. So it's really cool. And as a way of saying thank you, Tifosi Optical, you can put in the coupon code or Station 1 or ESO Network. Both will work and you'll get 10% off your order. Not too shabby. So definitely check it out, TifosiOptics.com. All right, Mr. Mike, ready to play it again?
Well, we'll play it for the first time and then we'll see if we have to do it again.
With our show, we usually have to do it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
true.
And you
It's
know,
true.
if you're listening in the audience, every time we quote a line from the movie, if you take a shot, you'll be plastered here in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably already are. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and you know, I'm just gonna throw this out there, even though it's celebrating its 80-year anniversary this year. We are gonna spoil it. So if you have not seen it yet, you know, and you want
If
to,
you've been
I
hiding
say,
under a rock.
I definitely recommend watching it and then enjoy the fun because we're going to talk all about it and its legacy. Like I said, it's it's a 1942-year-old movie, yet it's 80 years old. How does that work? Well, it was supposed to be wide released in January of 1943, but because of the North African invasion by the Allies, it was pushed up because it was thinking it was relevant. Casablanca was in the news, so it was pushed back. It was pushed up the release to November of 1942, but then it did release wide in January. So a lot of people see January date as the actual release date. The anniversary is there, so that's where we get the 80 years from. And as it happens this year, Warner Brothers, the studio involved, is celebrating its 100-year anniversary this year. So I know that TCM and Warner Brothers has a lot of things planned for the celebration, including I think they're going to re-release this on the big screen in certain markets. So look for that if you get a chance.
March 5th and March 8th, I believe.
There you go. So if you have a chance to see this on the big screen, I recommend it. Although
Bobby
I have
just
a caveat.
his keep.
I have a caveat with that, but I'll talk about that later maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, but oddly enough, when the movie was released, it was kind of lackluster. Critics didn't love it, and box office wise, it did okay. Now, considering that the nation was at war at the time, I mean, all things are skewed here. But obviously, this is a movie that. Well, I do say, like, looking at the numbers here, it earned $3.7 million on its release. Now, the equivalent of that in 2021 terms would be about $49 million. The 50th anniversary re-release, which I watched on the big screen, granted $1.5 million, which is pretty solid. You know, it's done okay since then, because it's been, you know, it's one of those movies that definitely got more popular because of TV, because it was shown on TV, and on a video and everything else. So it's definitely curious to see where everybody discovers this movie. To be honest with you, I have no memory of watching this for the first time. I know it was early. I don't know if I rented it, saw it on TV, have no memory, but I know that I've seen it several times. It is one of my favorite movies. I dare say that I consider it one of those perfect movies, but I'm kind of curious as to you guys. Bobby, we'll start with you. When did you first see Casablanca? Do you remember that?
I honestly don't. It was probably, as a kid, it was probably one of those Sunday night movies on one of the networks, you know, because those were a big deal when I was a kid. You know, Sunday night there was this big movie on. You know, we had dinner, the family gathered in the living room, and we watched a movie together. So it was probably that, but like you, I don't have a specific memory of seeing it for the first time. I know it had to be on TV because I've never seen it on the big screen. So,
Well, sure, that's your only option.
yeah, right.
And it's a
So,
movie that doesn't detract from being on TV because the ratio that was filmed at, that was shown at, not widescreen, not Panavision, not anything like that. So it actually is one of those that you don't miss too much when it's on a television screen. Dave, what about you? Do you have an early memory with Casablanca?
I honestly think I may have seen the Marx Brothers first.
One Night in Casablanca?
I honestly do. Yeah, and exactly. And I'm like, I don't remember. I don't even remember when I bought the DVDs. I was looking for it before. All I could find was my Maltese Falcon, and I feel like I got it at the same time. What was this was, and I have no idea what. Yeah, this was 2006. It looks like this release. So, I feel like I got the DVD around then, but as far as the first time I saw it, I have no idea. It's just kind of, it's one of those things that it's just there.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think for most people,
Yeah.
I'm sure you get to an age limit at the bottom there where it's like, huh? But for so many people, I think it's just so in the zeitgeist of our pop culture that it's
Oh yeah. Even
everybody
people who've never
knows it.
seen it know the lines.
Yeah.
They
Exactly.
don't know
we
why
need-
they know the lines,
Yeah.
but
Oh, it's because it's been also parodied so
Yes.
many different
Sure. Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like, for us, when we saw Animal House, it was groundbreaking. But for people nowadays, it's been parodied so much
Mhm.
and everything. If they go back to look at the original, they're going, oh, that's where it came from and stuff. It's the same
Or
thing
like
with
that. They
Casablanca.
they've copied this other movie. Like
Yeah, exactly.
people see Flash Gordon and think, oh, Star Wars. They copied Star Wars. Well, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Very
I
nice.
mean,
So-
the original Flash, not the big movie.
but Mike, do you have
Yeah.
an early memory watching this, or
The first time I saw it, I was probably about 7 or 8 years old and watched it with my grandfather. My
Oh.
grandfather was huge into silent films, into 1920s, 1930s movies, and 1940s, of course. And, Casablanca was right up there with watching Maltese Falcon, watching the Marx Brothers, Abbott and Costello, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, um all these movies that came out in that era was just groundbreaking, and it was eye-opening, and that showed my love for film. And part of that was just amazing for me to be able to you know grow with it and see, get into the histories with it. And that's what made me study film and animation and such when I was in college, get to watch a history of film and get to write a paper about the background behind this movie, what they went through to make it and everything. It was just awesome.
yeah, talking about that for a second. When Warner Brothers made Casablanca, they did not think it was like it was just another thing off the factory, right? Like they were just churning out movies. Now they put A-list talent on it, and they certainly put one of their best directors on it, Michael Curtiz, who is responsible for many, many, many classic movies. But they did not expect this to be like the big deal, the classic that it's become. They did not expect, so they just sort of made the movie. There was different going behind the scenes. There's a lot of like little stories about it, but why do you think, and Dave, we'll start with you, why do you think that this movie that Warner Brothers just kind of churned out from the studio system, like they were churning out a bunch of movies every year, why do you think this one really like everything, like lightning struck and everything was just perfectly laid out on this one?
I mean, the cast, for one thing. There's just so many iconic actors, Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre, all of these amazing people. And they did, some of them were together on Maltese Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've done other work together. So they were very cognizant of what each other does. And that shows that kind of chemistry is there. And that shows more. Really, they're also just amazing actors. There's chemistry no matter what they do. But definitely, the chemistry is just off the charts every little bit. I think just the foreign, the wonder that is Casablanca. Like you said, it was in the news. Everyone's wondering, oh, what is, where is this place? This is
This
it
wondrous
definitely was
place called Casablanca.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it I know it didn't do stellar off the mark, but coming back to it,
It
That-
won
that-
best
that
pick. It won
thing,
best
yeah.
picture that year. So
Sure,
in the Academy
yeah.
Awards.
Yeah, it won Best Picture, and the screenwriters got Best Adaptation Oscars. So it was recognized for being a great work.
Mhm.
And Warner Brothers pushed it as much for the Academy Awards, that's for sure, because they knew what they had. At the time, Bergman was she had done some movies, but she was not like a superstar. Bogart was just coming off of like Maltese Falcon and a couple other movies. So he was being recognized as a starring player, a leading man. Paul Heinrich had done some work, so he was obviously there. But it's interesting, you have a cast of 22 speaking parts, and only 3 of them were born in the United States, and that's Bogart, Julie Wilson, and Joy Page. So you've got this international cast of amazing actors, some of which were fleeing from Nazi Germany, so they knew exactly what the subject was when they were like for the characters. They could relate big time. And so you have these, and they're all like, a lot of them are in the studio system. So as Dave pointed out, they're used to working together. They know each other. They hang out at the cantina. Like everybody like knows each other, even if they haven't worked together. Everybody's, I mean, Warner Brothers is one big happy factory family, right? Like that's
You could say that.
Exactly. Well, Jack could be kind of Jack, but anyway, but yes, you guys mentioned the characters, and we have to start with Bogart, right? I don't know what you guys' history is with Bogart. I am a big Bogart fan. I think he's fascinating as an actor. I think he's in this he shows, I think, some of the widest range of his career at this point, because he'd always played mob guys, bad guys, and then he goes into Maltese Falcon, and he plays a private detective, and he's kind of hard-nosed there too. But in this one, he gets to play a romantic lead, and it's really kind of a stretch for him, I think. What was your exposure, Bobby, to Bogart? Was this like the first time, or had you been familiar with him pretty much?
It was either this or Maltese Falcon. Those were the two when I was a kid. That's where I knew him from. Or, as we mentioned earlier, the multiple parodies of
Sure.
Bogart,
Mm-hmm.
to where I think I saw those first. And then when I saw movies that he was in, it's like, oh, okay, that guy.
I get that
where
reference.
they got it from. I get that reference. That's where it came from.
Mm-hmm. Good old Peter Brady.
Yeah, it's and because this is a story too that has been parodied and adapted into multiple forms. The Muppets have done like Casablanca skits.
Oh yeah,
So
very
you
much so. Yeah.
see, so even when I watched this movie the first time, I was familiar with it without realizing I was familiar with it. But you're right. I think Bogart really straddles the line of he's not quite good, he's not quite bad, he's somewhere in the middle, and the pendulum kind of goes back and forth. To where there are moments the first time I watched it where I was surprised when he put her on the plane with him. That I expected, no, he made this deal because he wants the girl. So so there's moments where I believe that he could be that guy too. I believe him when he says,
easy.
that I look out for my neck. That's the only, I stick my neck out for no one. And you believe that because of how they've played him to that point. So so seeing him stretch, seeing the flashbacks where he's a happy guy in love, in Paris, it's different than how he is throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, it's true.
But then you also, but you also buy that heartbreak when he's there with Sam and he's drinking and he makes Sam play the song again. And in one of those things where people misquote the line so often, but he has Sam play the song, and he just goes while he's drinking. You feel that heartache. He really sells it there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you literally see his heart break when he gets on the train.
Mm-hmm.
He plays that really well.
Yeah.
And
you love how it's raining at the time, so you can't see his, Bogart crying. Like they're still not really sure they want him to have Bogart crying on screen, so they have it rain, so it kind of like his tears mix in with the rain.
But oh my God, is that not a beautiful effect though of watching the ink smear as the water hits it? That is just an absolutely beautiful effect.
Well, Dave, what about you? I'm sorry, Mike.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, you looking at that scene and you partly think, is that tears or is that the rain that's doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's washing away the last thing he has of her.
Exactly.
Dave, what are your thoughts about Bogart, especially in this?
I mean, in this, he's great. He is. I actually listened to a lot of this stuff on radio because they did a lot of radio adaptations of some of these
Yes.
movies.
Mhm.
Yep.
And they, Bogart is not known for being a radio actor, but he did come back. They would often bring the cast members back to do as many of these as they could, and Casablanca was one of them, as was Maltese Falcon. And he's just got, and I hate to use that word iconic every time I open my mouth, but it still fits. Like he is this iconic voice. He has this the features, everything about him is just fits. It's him, even if you don't know it's him, or someone's doing him, even if you don't realize that's what they're doing, because it is just so there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
just
he
if
is
they
not
copy-
parodying himself.
Right.
No.
But this movie kind of becomes the look that he's known for,
Mhm.
because anytime he is parodied or you see people doing art of him, he's in that Rick's, the suit that he wears in Rick's.
The
Yeah.
suits,
Well,
or he's in the trench coat.
The
Yeah.
trench
And
coat and
the
the fedora
fedora.
comes from Maltese Falcon.
Sure,
but
but
it
you see him,
carries
yeah.
over into this. I mean, he's wearing that kind of outfit here.
Mhm.
They know how to stylize him at this point, right? They know
Yeah.
what makes him look good.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I can't remember if it happens before this, but I mean, he looks damn good in a tux too.
Yes, he does.
That's true.
So I mean, he can wear that
Darn
pretty
him.
well.
Darn
What's
him. Darn him.
Why can't I look that good?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But he also, when he enters the cafe, when he walks into the room, I mean, he owns it. He owns that space. He looks like he's in charge just from the way he carries himself.
And it's almost like the people part when he's walking
Well,
in.
Curtis
It's
does
a-
an amazing job when he's introduced. That first time you see him, you get like this shot, like it's like, here he is, like, and you hear about him
Mhm.
before you see him. It's really a great way to introduce him.
And also, I love the fact too that the first time we see Rick, he's playing chess against himself.
Yep.
Which tells you this guy's a planner. This guy is planning his moves. He's planning 3 or 4 moves ahead, which really informs the movie once you realize what he's doing in the movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just brilliant. I mean,
And
I
he
could
could-
study the script for this.
Exactly. Well, he's playing everybody in this
Mhm.
movie, and seeing her basically throws him for the total loop.
Oh yeah.
And it throws him completely off his game, and he's trying to regain his composure through the second half of this movie, and you're trying to guess what he's going to be doing. Like you said, Bobby, is he going to get on the plane with Ingrid Bergman?
Mhm.
And everything, because you fully expect him to, and then he pulls the switcheroo, and then he ends up shooting the Nazi, which is awesome.
Yeah. And it probably doesn't help Rick either that while he is caught off guard, Captain Renault is there commenting on it.
And it's like,
It's like just, twisting it in,
Oh, Captain Renault is like the person you do not want whispering in your ear the whole time, and he's such a great
He's like the
character.
he's like the devil.
Yeah.
Icon, right?
Yeah, but you have to love him. He's such
Louis-
a great character.
But he is not a good guy. Even though at the end he and Rick have a bit of a that buddy relationship. But Renault is not a good guy. He's trading sexual favors with teenage girls for exit papers, and he is,
and he goes wherever the wind blows.
Yeah, he's gonna follow the drunk girl home because she's Rick dumped her. I get a shot.
Exactly. And he was seeing, literally, he had no love for the Nazis, but he was, sucking up to them because they were in charge, and he knew that's where his bread was going to be buttered for the next couple of years, at least.
Oh yeah, if they had if they had taken over, like if they had moved in and taken Casablanca, he wanted to make sure he wasn't going to end up in a cell.
Or in a concentration camp.
I was gonna say, like, let's be clear here. If you just can't go, okay, I quit, and then move on to something else. No, if you disagree with the powers that be in Casablanca, you will be dead is probably the best thing that can happen to you.
Shot quickly. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Shot
look-
quickly. Yeah.
Look what happened to Peter Lorre's character.
Mm.
You
Sure.
know, he supposedly tried to escape, you know, using,
guy
you
at
know,
the
air
beginning.
quotes on it.
At the
Yeah,
very
guy-
beginning, I think the narration says that life is very cheap in Casablanca, right? And
Yep.
certainly we see that play out. But yeah, let's talk about Mike. You mentioned that you know, he's got everything in control until she walks in, right? Like, so let's talk about Ilsa, played marvelously by Ingrid Bergman. Dave, what's the attraction with Ingrid Bergman?
Where she's iconic.
It's like you've seen her, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that.
She
That's
glows
a loaded
through this whole
question.
movie. She is so freaking
Yeah.
beautiful,
Mhm.
and she is perfect in this movie.
Yeah.
She is, you know, she's radiant, and you know, there, even in the scenes that are dark, she glows in these scenes, and that's what's just amazing about Ingrid Bergman in this character in this movie, and I think that establishes her going forward from this movie with everything
What he
she
said.
did.
Ingrid
So-
plays, I find in her repertoire, she plays like women that are compromised, let's put it that way, very well. And that the fact that they're not really victims, but they're also they struggle to be in control. Like, I mean, she's obviously in a man's world. She's the main woman, you know, female character in this. There's others, but they're just treated like, you know, well, they're not treated very well, let's put it that way. And you know, it could be argued that Ilsa has no agency in this, but she does, I think, and right away she's torn. She's torn. Obviously, the wounds of that parting in Paris have affected both of them to such a degree that you can see it on both of their faces when she returns. And when she sees Sam, and when she asks him to play the song, and he's like, I don't know what that is. And she's like, yeah, you do. Let me hum it. And she hums it. And then, you know, Sam starts playing it. And Rick comes bursting in like, I told you never to. And then he sees her. And man, if that's not a moment that gets you right there, like, I don't know what you're doing watching movies.
Yeah. Well, I get what you're saying about her having no agency, but her character is so instrumental to the plot.
Yes.
Had Laszlo come alone,
Right.
Laszlo would have ended up with the Germans.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah,
Without
Rick
doubt.
does what he does because of Ilsa,
Oh, of course.
and yeah. But I also like too, like you said, she's not the damsel in distress through all this, the clingy wine. You know, she's willing to, you know, pull a gun on Rick. She's willing to do whatever to save her husband. And I think that really informs a lot of her character. You know, but yeah, her being there is instrumental in making Rick make the decisions that he does.
She's also instrumental in what Laszlo's doing. Like, you know, I mean, even though Victor's a great man, even he admits I couldn't do it without her. I mean, he leans on her, and it's not really a romantic love relationship, but yet it's one of necessity. And because of the way things are in the world at this point, you can't just ignore that. You can't just be selfish and go like, I want to just hook up with this woman, because there are things going on in the world that just make that not matter, right?
Yeah. Well, I also like to the way that they write this, you know, in the hands of a lesser writer and director, Laszlo and Rick would have been more of a jealous, you know, trying to one up each other. And I think that would have diminished the movie. That Rick understands what Laszlo is doing, and to a point supports what Laszlo is doing. Because they hint at it a lot that, you know, before Paris, Rick was like Laszlo. He was fighting for something.
Mhm.
And because, you know, that near the end of the movie, it's like, welcome back to the fight, you know. And so, there's a lot of that kind of awakens that in Rick. So there's not,
It also awakens that in Rick.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think Rick goes back into the fight without seeing her.
No. No, Rick would have just kept his nose clean the whole stayed at the club and just remained completely impartial to everything.
And Victor's not stupid. He knows what's going on right from the beginning. I think the more I watch it, the more I'm like, right from when they enter and they see each other for the first time, I think Victor's like, yeah, these two have a history.
Mm-hmm.
This could get messy.
You could tell when people have chemistry just by walking in the room and everything. And it was like it hit literally as soon as he saw her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Laszlo saying no explanations are needed, and because he understands, because
Rick basically goes, yeah, she came over to sleep with me and I let her pretend. I'm like, are you saying what I think you're saying? He's like, oh yeah, he's saying, and Laszlo's like, I understand. You don't have to go any more detail than that, buddy. I got the picture.
Yeah, I need those papers, man.
Yeah.
I really need those papers, Rick. Take her, she's yours.
One thing I want to mention, because we've all mentioned it over and over about parodies and how, like, when you watch this, it's kind of like one of those things that, I mean, everybody knows it's in the pop culture. Still, though, at least for me, when I watch Casablanca, it still manages to hold up. It still manages to rise above all of that. Dave, I see you nodding. Why do you think that is? Why, when you go watch it, is it just like when you watch it now, why isn't like, oh, it just seems so like it's cliche now, but why does it still hold up?
Part of it is because that's why it's the cliche. It is the start, almost the start of that. It's not entirely the start of that, but really it is. When that is what you're seeing anytime anybody at this point is doing any sort of hard-boiled detective or expat bar owner type thing. It's all comes back to Casablanca, and the biggest version of that being the movie. It has everything. It's got the looks, it's got the feel, and it's got just enough hokey that what it's there, but it's not over the top. It's just kind of a very subtle, we know what this movie is, when this movie is. It fits. It doesn't try to be something it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like the entire movie minus the airport was done in studio.
It was all
the Paris stuff is all stock, so it's all
and most of the sets were reused. I think Rick's was the only one that they built. Everything else they reused from other productions, because it was,
I'm sure,
they were doing all this on the cheap, because it was the war going on. You couldn't just spend, and this was not an epic movie that they were making. No. They thought this is just another thing that we're going to churn out.
Right.
But it was interesting too, because Rick's was a character on its own.
Oh yeah.
And that is such an amazing club. And the back room with the gambling and everything. What? There's gambling here? I didn't know that. Your winnings there.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
The fact that when we go through Rick's, when the camera goes through Rick's, we're getting snippets of conversation that have nothing to do with our main plot.
No.
But oh my God, they're fascinating.
There's so many tales in this club. You could do movies after movie after movie on so many different people in this club. And that's what was just amazing from it. And that's what makes the story so rich, is you have something like that and it's believable. That's what also makes it,
I think a lot of archetypes, like Dan was saying, the tropes we get a lot of archetypes in this movie that later people go, ooh, okay, we need the sniveling pickpocket. Ooh, we need, ooh, we need the lovable bartender, waiter, we need the smart, we grab these people because we've seen in this movie, it works.
Mm-hmm.
But
sorry, Bobby. I loved in the club that everyone respected Rick.
Yes.
Too, and everything. Everyone who worked for Yeah. Well, everyone that's true, but everyone who worked for him, you know, you didn't have anyone who was going to backstab him
Mhm.
or anything. They all were like, yes, sir, Mr. Rick. Yes, sir. You know, like, and it's
Because
just like,
he was, even though he was hurt and he was still suffering from the wounds of Paris, he was still fair. He still
oh,
treated
yeah.
everybody fairly. And you know, he had done some things, sure, but you get the feeling that he wasn't at heart a bad guy.
No.
Mm-mm. No, and he had so many different, his hand in so many different things too, you know, and it was just amazing to see, you know, and he had all his people doing the work for him. So none of it could be pinned on him too.
Yeah, but he was not interested in any underground movements, any political movements, any war stuff. He was not
Mm-mm.
up for any of that stuff. He was like, "Don't tell me. You can do what you need to do. Just don't tell me. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just a businessman.
I stick my neck out for no one."
Well, I
Until
think
all,
too,
until
one of the,
all of, go ahead, Bobby. Sorry.
let's say one of the things too, when you look at this movie through the lens of 80 years later, if somebody had made this movie, they didn't make a period piece. Had you have made a period piece set during World War II, there would be a lot of allusions to how it turns out. When
Mhm.
they're making this movie, they have no idea how the war is going to end because the war is still happening.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very much so.
You know, there's still a few years of World War II to go.
Oh, yeah.
So there are none of those things that if you made it, you know, if you made a movie today set during World War II that, you know, tongue in cheek, if we already know who wins, so we can pepper it with these things, that's not there. But they still write it in a way that those characters are fully realized.
Mhm.
I buy the Nazis here as how history has shown the Nazis.
Oh,
That
sure.
kind of
And
thing.
you even had the Nazis being the bad guys
Mhm.
in it,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, because, you know, for all they knew, the Nazis could have been won the war
Yeah.
or something, but, you know, they were still the bad guys and everything.
Mhm.
And it was real interesting, especially watching it this time, because when Rick was saying it's December 1941, and it's like, wait a minute, that's when US got into the war and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so,
I think he says that right. I think my understanding is it's right before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
right.
Because he says it's December 1941. What time is in New York? I bet they're still all asleep there. And I think he's thinking like the world is going crazy, but in New York, they don't care. They're still asleep. They're not involved with this yet. So I
Mm-mm.
think this happens on the very brink of the US being forced to be involved in this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because all the talk of the United States in this is all about that's the safe place to be.
Everyone wanted to get
Yeah.
through Lisbon, wanted to get to the United States.
Yeah, because there's no fighting there. The war hasn't touched that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So this movie, had they made it a year later, would have been a whole different bit of
Oh,
plot.
sure. Of course.
You know.
And it was interesting
And-
because they were even trying to bait Rick a couple times. You know, what would you do if they bombed London? What would you do if they
Or they
bombed
bombed New York.
New York?
Like,
Yeah.
I love his response to the New York question.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple of neighborhoods that
you don't want to get into, which is awesome.
Something
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say, something that kind of sticks in my head watching this movie and watching anything else war era. They don't have the same feeling. You almost forget 80 years later, you forget that these are taking place at the same time, other than looking right at the plot. Like if you just look at everything else, you think, oh, World War II, you think Pearl Harbor, you think a very specific set of visions when you think World War II, that this isn't. It is that little pocket of, yes, the war is happening, but not really right here, but kind of is.
Yeah.
It's
I get it.
Or the war's happening, but it's just not there in Casablanca,
Yeah.
or it's not in the United States yet because the US is involved. But it's been going on. World War II has already been running for 2 years at this point, since Germany invaded Poland in 1939. And it was, you know, there was just so much happening already because Russia was getting involved and England was already involved. And of course, France had already been invaded by this point and everything. So
Yeah, we're not seeing actual footage of the violence of war in this, but yet I think because it was filmed at the time when the war was going on, as Bobby mentioned, that you do get the sense, and Dave too, that you mentioned that like you can just feel it here because the characters are running around, it's chaos, they're freaking out about the Nazis and everything like that. The Nazis are coming, and there's this impending doom that when movies are made about the war now, it's all like we won, so it's from that perspective, and it permeates that movie. Whereas movies like this that were made during the war, they don't know that yet.
Yeah.
And there's this cloud of danger, this atmosphere, even in a movie like this, which is basically a romance drama, that it's not noir, by the way. Just because it's black and white, people,
Yeah.
this is not a film noir movie. Let's get that straight.
By
Just
no
because
means,
Humphrey
this is no,
Bogart's in
yeah.
it doesn't mean it's noir. But it's still, it still permeates this movie, I think, because you just feel like I said, the actors are going by the fact that some of them just escaped Nazi Germany and made it over here to work, and they know what it's like. And
Yeah.
we just don't have that. We don't have that context because we haven't been in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, there was a
Thankfully.
real fear.
Yeah.
There was a real fear of them coming into your house and just taking you, you know, and
Oh,
that,
very much
and like
so.
you said, yeah, most of the actors were from places where that was really happening. So I'm sure that informed their performances. But when people watch the movie, even people in America, that was still what you hear. You hear the they're
Right.
going to come, they're going to go into your house, they take
And
people in the dark.
Let's say something real quick also. When they were saying in this movie concentration camps, it was not related to the Jewish concentration camps where they were these were the prison camps.
Mhm.
This was just the prison camps. This was not the death camps, because they didn't find out about these till like 3 years later.
Right.
And till they discovered that horror. So
These were still very bad places, but yes, they
Yeah.
were not the gas chambers. Yeah.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
weren't the gas chambers or the work camps or people being shot in the ditches and stuff. No, it was not that at all. This was being just related. These were work camps. These were prisons that they were just calling concentration camps. So I had to explain that to Judy. So I was like, oh, they knew about that already? I was like, no.
No.
No. And so it was real interesting with that. And it was also, you guys were saying, people were like all on edge because you didn't know what was going on. But the scene in the bar, but I called it the battle of the bands,
Right.
which was amazing scene and everything. When the Nazis were in there singing the battle hymn, and then when they played the French anthem, and everyone in the bar like literally started singing, and it was just awesome to see, because it showed pride and nationalism at its best. And even because you had a lot of refugees from France in Casablanca, and they were showing, hey, we're going to stand up to this and everything. And it was really awesome. This is way before France was liberated, so this was just pretty awesome.
I mean, it's a great protest moment.
Oh yeah.
Where it's them standing up and going like, look, I know the bad guys are right there. These are the guys that want us dead. I can't say that. F them,
Yeah.
That's,
Fudge them.
Yeah. Bleep them. So
I know the guy who's the editor for this, so it's okay. No.
But there's that too. Again, it's one of those things where they film it well, because we really do get that nice shot on Laszlo and the pride and the power as he is like pumping up everybody to, there's a lot of good stuff there. And it's nuanced performances, because they don't tell us, they're not explaining what they're doing. They're just doing it and we get it.
Yeah. Visually and audio wise, you can see that the Nazis are, they're turning tail, and well, then they then they resort to what they always do, which is violence.
Mhm.
And strong arm tactic.
Yep.
Yeah, shut this place down.
Yep, shut this
Mhm.
place down. That's it. You know,
I can't sing my
you-
song. Nobody can sing
you
their
guys,
song.
you guys have had your fun. Yeah, go to bed. All right,
You're
so
closing me on what charges? We found out there's gambling here, sir.
classic movie. Warner Brothers has never saw fit to bless us with a sequel.
Thank
There
God.
was a 1983 attempt at a TV series with David Soul and Hector Alonso, a prequel series. I have not seen it, and I have no urge to. But do you guys think that this is something that should just stand, or are you open to any sort of remake, reboot, or anything, retelling of this story?
I'd rather see that 2 steps removed, because there was sort of one in Rocky Jordan on the radio.
Okay.
Mm.
But Rocky Jordan is an American expat, this time in Cairo, with a police captain as his foil. It's a very Casablanca setup
Mhm.
throughout the whole thing, and it is the same thing. You go in and, oh, look, here's these stories around the Cafe Tambourine.
Mhm.
It is Casablanca, just not in Casablanca. So I'd rather see that get remade and be 2 steps removed
Mhm.
than actually Casablanca itself, or a sequel to Casablanca itself.
Yeah, just kind of use the basic plot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I saw back in probably the early 90s, we went to Manhattan, and off Broadway, they were doing a play of Everybody Comes to Rick's.
Mhm.
And so it was, of course, it's the same story, but it's what this movie was based off of. Slightly different. They changed it a little bit, but it was very close. And I could see maybe that a revival on Broadway or something, more
Imagine
than
that would,
them
yeah,
doing a
'cause
remake.
I imagine that would be awesome, because really the first 2/3 of that movie is almost written like a play. It's one location,
Yep.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's people in and out, just like a good play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then they could just, put in another set and put an airplane in the background or something for the
Mhm.
final scene. So
Now all you need is a shadow on the wall.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't want to see it remade, because it's one of those, I think, Mike, you said this, it's as close to a perfect movie
Mhm. It
as
is.
as is out there. And no matter how good your remake is, it's going to be compared, and it's not going to measure up. Even if you make a great movie to fandom, it's not going to measure up. It's going to be tore down by reviewers, and I mean, it's just,
And it's always going to be compared to this film.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Even
that's
if
never
it had,
stopped them from doing a remake.
true.
even if
True,
it
right.
has someone like Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, it's not going to be
I don't
the
even
what
wanna
it's.
see- I don't want to see that.
Now that Mike
Hugh,
has said
Hugh
that,
Jackman, I could probably see somewhere in there, but Ryan Reynolds,
somewhere right now, a producer went, "Wait a minute."
and hopefully
I
somebody
better
went up
get I
behind him
better
and just
get
went,
credit for
"Look."
that. I better get credit for that.
Yeah, and it's a movie that is, despite that, I mean, it's been released, and there's been lots of different home video releases, D Blu-ray. I think it's 4K is available as well now.
I believe so. Yeah.
So there are a lot of different ways you can see it. It's always one of the first movies that's released in a new format. Excuse me.
It's also
and,
currently on HBO Max.
It is
if
on
you just
HBO
want to watch it
Max.
at home.
That's where we watched
Yeah.
it. It was awesome.
And
we
as
even did it
Bobby
with
said,
subtitles.
that it is going to be released in theaters. Now, I will say, a few years ago, I think it was for the 70th or 75th anniversary, I saw it as a Fathom Events event, a screening in a theater, and it was digitally projected. And I must say that I was a little disappointed. When the film had its 50th anniversary, it was released, and at that time theaters were still showing things in 35. They were actually projecting 35 millimeter. So this was a first very brand new print, 35 millimeter. I saw it at the Enzian Theater in Maitland, Florida, which is just outside of Orlando. And let me tell you, it was one of the most magical experiences I've ever had. Mike, you said that Bergman glowed when you watched it and
Oh,
she does
God,
on
yes.
screen, but when you
Mhm.
see her in 35 millimeter, I mean, you fall hard in love with her.
Oh,
The
yeah.
smoke that's permeating that from Bogart's cigarette is practically in your face. Like it's just an experience. I hope that people sometime get a chance to see this projected on actual film rather than just digitally projected. Because if it's digitally projected, you might as well just watch it on HBO Max, in my opinion. But that's the experience that I had. And so it's one of my favorite movies. Like I said, Bobby, and you mentioned it. I call it a perfect movie, not because it's a perfect movie that everybody can enjoy. Because look, everybody's got their thing. Everybody likes what they like. But there is, I can't, when I've watched this several times, and there is no place that I can think of that they could have done this better. Everything just works, and everything works so well. It's you couldn't do it any better than this movie has done it. And I think for that, it's awesome. I will say, they didn't do a sequel. But a few years later, when they made To Have and Have Not, based on Hemingway's story, they changed Hemingway's story so that they was in more of a Casablanca type mold. And of course, that one featured Lauren Bacall, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time. So even I put that on a bigger pedestal than even Casablanca. But yeah, I will admit it's not as perfect. It's not as perfect.
Mhm.
And it's a movie that, in watching it again, this especially hit me, that it has inspired other filmmakers with things. Certainly, watching this, there's a lot of Indiana Jones that is taken right out of Casablanca, from the music cues. You could tell that was a big part of the inspiration. And
I think the whole
even
relationship between Indy and Marion, it kind of
Yeah.
is similar to, the complex relationship that Rick has with Ilsa.
well,
I think
even the
it's
streets of Cairo
true.
felt very
Mhm.
much like Casablanca. What
Yeah.
you saw in this film. And
yeah,
everything.
and certainly the John Rhys Davies character Salah is very reminiscent of some of the people that were in, maybe an amalgamation of 2 or 3 people that were in
Oh, yeah,
Rick's.
very much so.
Well, you do have your Fez wearers.
Yeah.
You do.
Your big man fat Fez weather.
Well, and that character that owns the blue parrot, I just blanked on his Ferrara.
Mhm.
In the X-Men, the Shadow King was based on that actor in this role and
Oh,
how they
very
drew
much
him.
so.
So
Mhm.
So, all right. So a lot of great performances, whether you see it on the big screen, whether you get the Blu-ray, whether you watch it on Turner Classic Movies or HBO Max, however you watch it. If you have not yet seen Casablanca, do so. 80 years, man, and it's still
And why haven't you in the 80 years, folks? Come on.
it's still just as
Valid.
magical in my opinion. And I've seen it maybe 80 times. It feels like I've seen it a lot. Let's put it that way. And it never gets old. Never gets old for me. And I hope that, for those people watching, they give it a chance as well. I know there's some people that are like, oh, black and white movies or whatever. And it's like, no, that
well, the beauty of
please.
black
Well,
and
you're
white
watching a
movies
black
too.
and white podcast right
Yeah.
now. So
The
come on.
beauty too
Of
Half
course
an
I
hour,
did.
3/4 of one.
Yeah, the beauty of not every black and white director got it, but in this case, the director gets it. Is they know how to use the shades of gray. One of the
Oh, God, they
one
had
of the
to.
one of the best things I think in this movie, and it's subtle, but the fact that the spotlight just keeps moving because we get the shots of the building with the light on the top.
Mhm,
But then
exactly.
when we're on the ground or he's looking out his balcony and the light just plays across the buildings, not only is it beautifully lit that way, but it's a constant reminder that we're being watched.
Mhm. It's consistency too,
Yeah.
because a lot of times a director would forget about that
Mhm.
and just play to the scene and that they're in, but they played, oh yeah, we've got to continue this through, like this is real life type thing.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that's what made this movie so solid. Like I said, perfect film.
Yeah,
the
we would
perfect film.
be here for much longer if we had to list all the great movies that Michael Curtiz directed. And then Arthur Edison as the cinematographer is amazing as well. They did the Maltese Falcon, Frankenstein, bunch of other stuff. So you got some really, that's the good thing of this is the benefit of the studio system. This is as good as it gets with the studio system. There's a lot of bad things about the studio system, and I'm not saying it should have been broken up or whatever. But man, they were able to produce when they were good. They were good.
They were good.
Like,
Yeah,
were
and
very good.
if you found a 1-2 act that worked, like these actors work,
Yeah.
then those actors kept on, and yeah,
Absolutely.
Oh, exactly.
All right, so 80 years, wonderful movie. See this movie. It's Casablanca.
Please.
We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back and get ready to close out the show.
Awesome, folks. All right, this is our bonus part for our YouTube listeners. And hi, YouTube people. It's always good to talk to you guys. You know what? It's gonna be a ton of fun to do and such. Let's talk about Humphrey Bogart and see what were your favorite roles that he did. What over the years he's done so many iconic films and everything. Let's what are some of your favorites? I'll start with Mikey.
Man, I don't know. I mean, maybe no one else will get a chance to go after me because I've made it a point to try to watch all of his performances. And I will say that Maltese Falcon, it kind of starts there. If you really want to see what Bogart is as Bogart, he's pretty good in some other movies before that, but he really becomes Bogart. And as we think of him in Maltese Falcon, although I do recommend High Sierra before that as well. Anything that he did with Bacall, he did 4 movies with Lauren Bacall. So I love all those. Key Largo, To Have and Have Not is my favorite. I think I'll just end with one of my favorite performances, which is film noir, is and a devastating one that is In a Lonely Place with Gloria Graham. That movie is amazing. And it's probably my second favorite performance of his ever.
Cool. Dave.
Besides this, probably his Sam Spade with Maltese Falcon, which is a bit weird because I actually don't like his Sam Spade, but that's a totally different show. I didn't love how he portrayed him, but at the same time, for what that performance was, it was incredible. I loved it. Really, there's no wrong Bogart movie.
That's true. Well,
not many.
Yeah, not many. Right.
You throw the dice, you're likely to get something better than average.
I am not a fan of Beat the Devil. I'll tell you that. That one gets a lot of regard, and that's a Peter Lorre film too. But Nelly, that one I can't take that one. But
no, totally.
I've seen that one. I'm gonna have to just to torture myself.
Some people love it. It's a cult thing, maybe, but I do not. So
no. All right, Bobby.
The first 2 that always come to mind are Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon. Those are probably the first ones I saw, and love those. I am also I'm a big crime fan, so Dark Passage or The Enforcer or Dead Reckoning, or I enjoy those quite a bit.
Cool.
Big Sleep, where he plays Marlo.
Big Sleep, yes.
Yeah, that's true. I also loved him. Treasure of Sierra Madre is awesome.
And was African Queen, yeah.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to go. African Queen is my favorite. Right after this one, and it's just him and Katharine Hepburn are just amazing.
Down the river they go.
Exactly, and it's such a powerful movie. And I wish The Rock's Jungle Cruise was even a quarter as good as this. But it was, it's interesting too, because I love his character. Almost a lot of times seems very cankerous, very and very very he's like not a nice guy in a lot of these movies and everything, like the Cane Mutiny and stuff. And it's just it's awesome to see him playing with all these into these different scenes And it's like, wow, you could just take him from here to here to here to here. And he's so awesome in each one of those. And that's what makes him such a great actor. And he was
Yeah,
taken way too, he
he does
died
about
way too soon.
he has about 20 movies where he's trying to find himself in the studios, trying to figure out what to do with them. And most of the time they just slot him in as a gangster X or gangster Y. And then John Huston gives him the break in Maltese Falcon, and suddenly he becomes a huge star. But then he's kind of in that image for a decade or so, and then he tries to break out of it and do different things. And some of those are successful, some of those are not. But it's an interesting career of his, and he's always fascinating to watch.
Very much so.
The movies might not be great, but in some cases, but he's always fascinating to watch.
Oh, very much so.
He was also, if not the first, one of the first actors to star in something new after he was dead. Remember they put him in Tales from the Crypt?
Oh, right.
And he was in a Pepsi commercial, I think that same year, where they had digitally inserted him into film. And he was, if not the first, one of the first to have that happen.
Nope. Interesting.
I hope the estate got something out of that. Stephen Bogart, I think, is still with us. One of his sons, I think his son with Lauren Bacall, and he manages the estate and everything. And yeah, they're pretty active. So
yeah, I'd like to think they've got a lock on his likeness and all that. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, because his likeness is so recognized, and even just like his silhouette, and you saw that in this movie when you saw him in the shadows and everything. And it's just amazing. And
he's not like a amazing looking guy. He kind of just looks like an everyman.
Yeah.
But that's what pulls you in.
Well, he had his features were very drawn out in some way. He had the bags under his eyes. He, had a slope nose, and and then you always saw him. He had the teeth like this because he had dentures and everything. So
I think he just, he pulled you in because whenever he said something or did something, he meant it.
Oh, very much so.
And you felt that, and it felt honest.
You hung on every word that he said, though. That's the thing. And man, that man could smoke a cigarette.
I know.
Yes, he could.
That's another reason you would never see a good remake of it.
Yeah. Oh my God, because all of them. I mean, I don't think there's a single person in there that's not just puffing away.
Puffing away. No, God.
And it adds to the atmosphere in more ways than one, obviously, but just on film, it gives a very different, haze.
Yeah. That's why they didn't need fog machines for the airport.
Yeah.
They just had the cigarette smoke.
Open the windows.
It was just the crew.
But I also think too, I mean, I agree with David, it adds something to those scenes in the bar. Especially anybody that's ever spent time in a bar, when people could smoke in them, that haze is just there.
Oh God.
And it,
I used to hate it when I used to go bar hopping and stuff, because literally I'd have to strip out of my clothes as soon as I got home and run into the shower, because it stunk like cigarettes and everything.
Yeah,
and
don't miss that at all.
No. Going
bingos too. If you had to work any bingos.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to hate it. Like when we used to go to clubs to see bands and stuff, people would have in the crowd cigarettes and stuff, and you're there especially if you're like at a punk thing and you're like slam dancing and everything, there's a good chance you walk out of there with a couple cigarette burns and everything from people hitting you with them.
And plus, in a lot of those bars too, especially the little dive bar, it was low ceiling, so the smoke was right here. And it was
so it's just
I Vegas messes with my head, because you can still smoke half the places in Vegas.
Oh yeah, in the casinos you still smoke, you still smoke and everything. And
Drives me
they
batty.
have
I'm
supposedly non-smoking sections, but that's like going into like they used to have at the airplanes in the 70s when they had the curtain blocking the non-smoking and the smoking
Yeah.
sections.
Someone who
that
hasn't
really
figured
helps.
out how smoke works.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when they used to go into restaurants, do you want the smoking or non-smoking sections? It's like, yeah, you don't have giant fans up there sucking that stuff out. You still smell it.
No.
Yeah,
and
it's
everything.
yeah, for anyone under a certain age, it is weird to think about because, I remember we used to go to McDonald's and McDonald's had ashtrays, on the
Yep.
tables. But it wasn't abnormal. That was just the world we lived in. That's what everybody was doing.
Yep. Exactly.
And yeah,
There was a weird, I don't know what it was like for you guys, but up here in Alberta, when that transition was happening of, okay, no more smoking, they had a time where you could have a smoking section if it was basically sealed off.
mhm.
So you had these completely like separate air vent systems and completely enclosed areas that actually did work.
Mhm.
And it was, tens of thousands of dollars in renovations or more
Mhm.
for all of about a year's worth of, you can have a smoker.
Yeah. Whereas when I was
Then
in
they had to
high
tear it all
school, there was a courtyard between the two buildings where
Yep.
where students could go smoke.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Or I was living in LA when they outlawed smoking inside a building. So they said, but bars were the one exception because they can have like an outdoor tented area where people could smoke and everything.
Yeah.
And it was just like, used to have people protesting and everything. It's our rights to do it, man. It's like, it's in the Constitution. It's not in the
We were-
No, it's not.
Constitution. No,
we were
sorry.
watching one of my buddies' bands play. It was a Saturday night, and it was all like they were letting people smoke in the bar, no problem. Then they all come around and started grabbing ashtrays and said, one inspector's coming. I'm like, we're gonna take a nobody smoked. I'm like, what are you gonna do about all the? I mean, the haze is not gonna just go away.
Yeah.
And the smell is
Yeah,
still
but they can't
there.
prove haze.
Yeah.
Oh God, dude, when my mom passed away, this is back in the late 90s, we inherited her car, but my mom was a chain smoker. And we tried to go get it detailed to get the cigarette smoke out of the upholstery and everything. The guy said they would have to take apart the whole dashboard because she smoked so much in the car. All the ash went down the air conditioning vents and everything.
Yeah.
And they would have to rip that all out to like try to vacuum it up and everything. And it's just
Mhm.
like, it's just craziness.
Yeah. My sister's mother-in-law has temporarily moved in with them, and smokes like a chimney. And unfortunately, it's in the same basement that a lot of my stuff was in storage in, including a bunch of books and papery things. And
boy,
board
those
games
things
and-
love smoke, don't they?
Yeah. It's and I can't get my stuff out of there because they're all blocked in now.
It was always funny when we used to go to Dragon Con when we first started, and the game area was down in the basement of the Hilton. And we, there was a haze, but it was not smoke. It was something I don't want to think about what it was from the gamers down there and everything, which was always funny. So it was just like, oh, that could be scary. I don't want to even think about that. But I
Yeah.
always picture like the gambling halls when I used to go down there and everything. So it's fun.
Yeah, because I mean, when I first started doing Dragon, people were smoking in the lobbies, and it was just a thing.
Oh yeah, it was. Well, thank you, you two people. You got a little bit of smoking 101. That went a different direction than I was even expecting. Started with Bogart, ended up with smoking.
You made it cool. That's for sure.
That's definitely right.
Yep.
Well, let's wrap the show up, folks. So let's go wrap up another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Dave, thank you so much, my friend.
You are very welcome anytime. I love coming on to Earth Station shows.
Yeah, Earth Station shows. That's what our network should have been called. The Earth Station shows. So
I mean,
anything you want,
a couple of them. So
exactly. Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
Always check out the rathole.ca for all your board game, tabletop gaming news and reviews. All of our links at Linktree, linktr.ee/therathole.ca.
Awesome. And Mr. Bobby Nash, 2 weeks in a row, sir.
2
This has been
weeks
a
in
treat.
a row. Yeah,
God,
this has been
come on.
nice.
I know. Get back in
Yeah.
the airlock, dude.
Back in the airlock. It's 2 weeks to air out the airlock. You know, it gets a
You
little
thought
whiffy
you
in
thought
there.
the cigarette spoke of that?
Yeah. JD and I are in there just puffing away. You know?
Yeah.
And you got to be careful. If you open up the wrong door, it airs out quick.
Exactly. It's like trying to open a window on an airplane, you know?
Yeah. But no, this was fun. I'm so glad to be here. Like I said, I love this movie. So thrilled to be able to come chat with you guys about it.
Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
I wish I had it handy where I could grab it. In the mail today, I got my copy of the Kolchak 50th anniversary anthology that I wrote a story for. And oh my God, this book is gorgeous. And just a big shout out to James and Moonstone and all the folks that worked on it. If you're a Kolchak fan, it's worth tracking. It's available in paperback and hardcover. It's worth tracking it down if you're a Kolchak fan. Beautiful book.
Awesome. All right, definitely. I saw the pictures of it on Facebook. It looks fantastic.
Oh yeah. There's 2 different covers. There's Jerry Ordway covers on one, and there's a J.K. Woodward who did a lot of the Star Trek and Star Trek Doctor Who stuff. Who does a Kolchak cover that's an homage to a Batman cover.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, it's the one where like it's a locked room mystery because Batman is at the far end and there's all these walls with doors. And so they made that one with Kolchak. Like even the Kolchak logo is in like a bat symbol.
Oh, that is awesome. Awesome. So that is very cool, sir. And you know what? I wish that Mark Maddox could have done one of those covers for that. It would have been awesome.
I don't know if you guys saw this. Sorry not to. James Palmer just shared a couple days ago. Mark did the cover for League of Monsters. I have a story in that one as well. And beautiful cover that Mark did.
Mark Maddox does everything great.
I know.
What do you think?
I kind of laughed when I
Nobody
saw it.
tell him I said that. Though.
Right.
Nobody tell him I said that.
Probably noticed. It's like, wow, the vampire looks so familiar. Because Mark takes a lot of photos, and it's like Mark modeled the vampire after himself.
Oh, dude,
there is no doubting that's Mark Maddox.
When Mark Maddox lived here, him and I used to have to do photographs of him and stuff because he wanted to do models for stuff for his drawings and everything. We used to be taking pictures of his hand in different positions for different drawings because he used to suck at drawing hands, he said. So we needed to base it off a photograph and everything.
I think that was very, like he told me once he was doing something for Doctor Who magazine and he was doing a Tom Baker Doctor image. And he's like, for as long as he was the Doctor, of promotional shots of him, there's like 4.
Yeah.
And everybody does those same 4 poses. So I'm going to do something else. And so he went out and like had someone dress up, took photos, and then just used Tom's face so he could come up with new poses that hadn't been used by everybody. And I thought that was brilliant.
Oh yeah. It's pretty.
There's a reason he keeps winning all those damn awards.
You think? Damn Mark Maddox. All right. Now this is turning into a bash session.
Yeah.
Mr. Mike.
But we do it from love,
Mr. Mike, we made it through another one, my friend.
We did, and as always, it's my pleasure.
So any Mark Maddox bashing you want to do? No.
You know what? I think I'll pass this round as far as bashing Maddox. But yeah, I mean that's something we do year round. So I'll wait till he's
easy
on
to
here.
do.
Next week, the Mark Maddox roast here on ESO.
Exactly. But I want to give a shout out to Michelle and I over the weekend saw 2 great bands that I was unfamiliar with as up until last week. One of them is a local band to Atlanta. It's a Celtic rock. They perform Celtic folk rock kind of things, and they're called the Muckers. They are very, very, very good. It was very fun, very much a great atmosphere that they provided when they opened the show. And then we got to see Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band. And let me tell you,
there's 3 of them.
They blew me away. There's only 3 of them, so the band itself number wise is not big, but they provide a big sound. And Reverend Peyton himself, the main guitarist, is phenomenal. He is so skilled at playing the guitar, blues, country, any rockabilly, hillbilly, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's all mixed in this one fun package. And it was a great night. I had never heard of either one of these bands, but I definitely hope that it's not the last time I see them, because they were both amazing.
Oh, Reverend Peyton is just amazing to see. We've seen him probably like 6 or 7 times, and each time he blows the roof out of the place. And it's like you said, their sound is so big, but it's just 3 of them up there, and it's just awesome. And it's amazing, and the different styles of guitars he has, and the different, the washboard and everything. It's a ton of fun.
It's a unique experience that I encourage everybody to take part in, because they're really
wrong end of the
fun.
continent for this.
They're so fun.
They come up your way, dude. They do.
And very positive too.
Very much
they
so.
may sing the blues, but they're very positive and very fun. Smiles all around.
Oh yeah, very much so. And speaking of smiles, I've been watching a new show that it doesn't put a smile on my face, but it's awesome. We are watching The Last of Us, folks. We've started, and it is beyond amazing. The first 2 episodes are gasp worthy, are amazing. It's just awesome. And we have not seen the 3rd one yet, but everyone's telling me it gets even better. So a show that does that to you, it's just awesome.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but I do understand, because they film it here, that Dragon Con fans will notice a few of the locations.
So same
and
thing.
The rest of it was filmed in Alberta, right around me.
Of course. So there you
I
go.
got a ton of friends that worked on that show. So it's constantly in my feed of, oh, look, there's my business, and there's that thing that I did. And yeah.
Cool. Exactly. It's awesome when you could do stuff like that. And the show was just a ton of, it's on, it's just, I can't even say how good it is, because it's beyond words how good the show is.
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about it in depth in a later
very
episode.
much so. Oh, very much so. And you know what? I think, so far I will go out and say this, it's my favorite new show of 2023 so far.
Wow.
And I know last week we talked about Poker Face, but this is even more so. This is more like jaw dropping.
This will not be The Last of Us chatting about this.
No, this will not be The Last of Us. So hopefully not. But, as we always like to say, it's always great to talk to you guys at home. We love you guys. And as always, thanks for listening to the Earth Station One podcast. We couldn't do this without you. We want to hear from you. So please write us anytime at feedback at earthstation1.com. Remember, you could also find Earth Station One wherever podcasts are found. Now, Earth Station One can also be found in video format on YouTube. Please subscribe and like. Thumbs up, of course. Tell all your friends about us. On behalf of myself, Mr. Mike Faber, of course, Mr. Mike Gordon, Mr. Dave Chapman, and the one and only Bobby Nash. Thank you all much for joining us. We will see you here next time on Earth Station One. Be safe, hug your loved ones. And you know what? Here's looking at you, kid.
Oh, sorry, supposed to.
Exactly. Drink.
Right.
Drink.